Hello everybody, it's Mystical here, and today I'm back with another tutorial. This one is on how to create a NASCAR Racing 2003 season 3DO. I started this series in text form with images on a forum maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and things got busy and I never got to complete it. And so this time I'm hoping to do it in video form, which I think will actually be more useful because then you can actually see in real time how I do everything. This tutorial is aimed towards those in the community that are interested in making their own 3D models for their tracks, or you're somebody that wants to help a track builder make a 3DO. And for me, what I've done in the community, I've made several 3DOs, many of them. You might have raced on some of my tracks that I made, like TS Superdome. I built all the grandstands, like everything in it. Yas Marina, I made everything that you see basically that's 3D in the world basically. And then my most recent release was Armored Digital Super Speedway 2017 edition, where I added some new features to it. But if you're in the community and you are unfamiliar with this type of stuff, but you've always wanted to help out or finally make your own stuff, I'm here to hopefully show you the basics. This will be a 3-part series for the most part, and I'll have some bonus videos and extra stuff, but this is about the most basic you can get to making a from scratch model and bringing it into the racing game where you can put it on your track or make assets for someone else. But in the real most basic form, what is a 3DO? Well, basically it's just a 3D model that is built for the NASCAR 2003 season engine, so it actually renders correctly and works. It's just a model, like I made this grandstand. Or you can make a scoreboard. You can literally make anything you want as a 3DO. A 3DO is literally just a 3D object that you've modeled and textured and then converted to work within the racing engine. And then, I've got like another thing, a billboard. I mean, anything you can imagine that you want on your track, you can build basically. And then I've got a hotel here as an example. All of these are models that you've probably seen on my tracks or raced around and saw. I've got more complex ones too. Many, hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands that I've made from scratch. And today I'm here to show you how you can make your own from scratch basically. This first part of this video is going to be the setup and getting familiar with Blender. There are other tools that I actually use to make 3D models, but this is aimed for people who are new or can't afford, the expensive programs and stuff to do this. So I wanted to use as many free programs as I could. There is one program that you'll have to buy if you want to finish this process, but I'll get to that later. It's not very expensive though. So to start, what are you going to need? Well, you're obviously going to need Blender, so you can go to their official site. I'll have links in the description in the video for all the sites I visit and stuff that you'll need to download. So for this first episode, you'll definitely need Blender. And then on the pits, they have a very good package here, editing tools. This contains a lot of tools for NASCAR 2003 editing, including stuff for track building and 3DO formatting. So you're going to want to download this, and I'll get into later what you want to install if you need to install something, but it's good to have this. And then last but not least, this will be in the final episode of this series. You'll need 3D SimEd. This is the one program that actually costs money. I think you can get a 30 or so day trial. I think it's going for $39 now. It used to be $50. So it actually went down. But this is a really good tool, and this is, as far as I know, the only way nowadays to make 3D models for NASCAR 2003. The right way, I should say, is you build them in 3ds Max, which is an expensive 3D program. But the problem is you need a PAS exporter plugin, but it only works for older versions of 3ds Max, which I think you can only have 6, 7, or 8, max 8, or something. And you can't really get that. even if you bought 3ds Max now, you don't have the ability to get older versions. And that's why I'm also doing this tutorial, because the way to do it before doesn't really work. This is, as far as I know, the way to do it. And last but not least, you're going to need an image editing program. You can either get GIMP, which will work fine. I think Paint.net also works as well. I use Photoshop, but I'm not going to be going over per se how to make textures. I'm just going to show you how you set up your 3D model to texture it, because texturing could be a whole different series and stuff. And if you've ever painted cars for this game, it's pretty much similar. There's a template and you paint on it, and this will show you how you make that, but that's for a later episode. So for this one, you'll need to install Blender at the very least. So once you do, you're going to want to open it up here, and you should be greeted by a little splash screen. You can just click anywhere to get rid of it, and then you'll have a scene here. The first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to set up your controls. The basic controls can work if you want, and I will have links in the bottom also going over Blender tutorial basics if you want to see others. But this is not a 3D modeling video. This is showing you how to 3D model for NASCAR 2003. Because this game is older, you don't have to do a lot of the new stuff because it can't handle it. Things like, normal mapping, high poly modeling, and baking it to a low poly, and all that crazy stuff that you would do in a modern game. It doesn't work for this, obviously. The most you have here is a basic model that has to be low poly, and then you have your diffuse and specular maps, basically. So I'm going to be showing you the tools that you will use to make a model that works for the game that we're going to be making it for. Not so much how to be extremely proficient on how to 3D model. But anyways, this is the viewport, and then you've got the editing tools and some other stuff down here that we'll be using, and then you got like properties panels and all that. But for the most part, we're going to be focusing on in here. So the first thing I recommend doing is going to user preferences, and up here I have it set to keyboard controls for Maya. You can just use Blender default, but just as a head up, because I'm more comfortable, because I come from a Maya background. Some of the buttons I tell you to click or whatever may be a little different because I'm using the Maya controls, but basically once you've done one 3D program, you've done them all in terms of the basic workflow of zooming in the camera and panning and stuff. It's just a different keyboard stroke that you'll have to learn. I've also set the select to left instead of right for selecting objects. That feels more comfortable. You can do whatever you want. This is where you'll edit your settings and preferences. And then I believe there was one last thing. You can also change the zoom. I believe I changed it to dolly. I think it was set to continue or scale. I did it horizontal. I think that's what it was. I've set it to horizontal instead of vertical, but anyways, those are those things. So basically you're in your viewport, and for my controls, if I hold down Alt and the middle mouse button, I hold those down, I can pan around like this. If I hold Alt key and the left click on my mouse, then I can rotate. And then if I hold Alt and the right mouse button, I can zoom in and out. And that's basically how you navigate. So if you want, you can pause the video and figure out how to do this, but that's basically the most simple it gets to moving around this cube that was generated when you open the program. Once you feel you are comfortable enough zooming in, panning, and rotating, then you can move on to this next part here. But basically that's what you're going to want to get comfortable with this, because it is a 3D model, and you will be looking all around it because you'll have to edit it. So, yep. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the select and just hit the delete key, and you'll get this little pop-up, and you want to delete it. So we're going to clean off everything. And what you can do is you can save as a startup file, and if you hit yes, basically every time you load Blender, it will just load a blank screen. I'm not going to do it now, but that's what you can do. You could put a billion objects in here and save it as a startup file if you want it, but this is how you can have it very basic and all that good stuff. So now we are going to actually just create from scratch a primitive. That's basically the most simple form of a 3D model you start out with, and that's what you use to build whatever you plan to build. And you should see a tab over here for all these things. There should be a create tab. And you can see you have a plane, a cube, circle, blah, blah, blah. Basically, we're going to start with a cube here, and you can see it places it right in the middle. So this is how you can create your basic shapes that you want to work with. And so now you want to manipulate this cube. And you can see there's these handlebars here, and they got arrows. Currently, this means you can move it. So if you click on this one, you can go up and down. And then you click on green side. I'm hitting Control Z is also just to go back. So say I move it. If you just hit Control Z, you can center it back. And it's generally a good idea to keep your 3D models in the center. Later on, I can show you how to, when we convert this model to NASCAR 2003, how you can recenter it if it gets messed up. But for the most part, it's generally good to keep your models in a center plane. And you can use the Q key on your keyboard to change this, and then you have W, E, and R. So W is to move, because that is one way to manipulate your object. Another way is to rotate it, so you have now rotation handles, so you can see I'm moving this guy around. And I can hit Control Z to go back. And then last but not least, you have the scale, which you can, scale it this way, sideways, up, down, or you can go in the middle here with the circle, and that will uniformly scale your object. So you can see it's getting really huge. So we'll just put that back. So that is how you will rotate it around. Now another thing to do is you can hit Control D, and you will have duplicated your object. You can see it's right here, and you can place it. You can also hit the delete key, hit OK, and you can get rid of an object. And it just kind of goes around. But what you can also do is you can hit Control D and just click, and then it's put it right next to it, nice and neatly. So if you can, try and put another cube on top of this one, like so. So you want to use all the manipulation tools I just showed you to kind of move this, and we'll even make it smaller. So we'll make it like something like this. I'll just move it down. Whoops. The button I just pressed there was 1, 2, and 3 on the keyboard. That just kind of puts it in like a subdivision, but we won't be using that really for NASCAR 2003 because when we actually make a model in the next episode, you'll see that the vertice count, which I'll go over what those are here in a second, has to be very low or the game will crash. But anyways, this is just to give you guys a visual of something to try. So if you want to do that. So when you get comfortable and you feel you can do this with the object, then feel free to move on to the next part of this video. So basically I'm just going to delete all that. Alright, we're going to make a cube again. So now, you've learned how to move an entire object, but now you need to know how to actually, edit these edges. Maybe you want to add more edges. Maybe you want to make this part smaller than the bottom, To do that, you'll go down here and you'll see an object mode. Currently we're in object mode, and that means you're just selecting the whole object. If you want to edit on a per object basis everything, then you have to go down here and you'll see edit mode. And now we switch to edit mode. And what this does is this will let you be able to select within the object different manipulations. Now if you right click on your model, you'll see we have vertex, edge, and face. So vertex, if we just select, these are points, and you can see I'm moving it now. Or I just grab that white circle, I can move it anywhere I want. So the vertex are all these little dots. Every corner has a dot basically. And that's really important for the poly count basically. And that's how you can move like little pieces like that. You can also do the edge, which is all these lines here. So you can move it within an edge like that, anywhere. And you can even rotate these things too. So you can, let me Control Z, you can even scale them. So all these properties have the same ability as well. And then the last one is a face, which is the entire face literally, which you can do just the same. And so, I mean, you can see already the potential with these 3 manipulators, what you can do. So I'm just showing you an example of, how you can create shapes within this. And that is just from using these 3 right here. Now, another way, sometimes you may have multiple objects that you'll, mold together later, and you need to move them all or whatever. If you hit the Tab key, you can go in between Edit and Object mode really easily. So you can see using hotkeys like Tab and then WER to switch between manipulators can really be helpful in speeding up your process. So I've now gone over all the manipulators within the object and the edit mode. The next thing that you're going to need to know how to do is actually how you add more edges and vertices and all that stuff. So if you're over here on this tab, you want to make sure you're up on the top one. So you can see all the keys that I've done in here also, you have duplicate, delete, scale, rotate. So if you don't feel comfortable using hotkeys, you can just click here. So you can see I'm clicking and then it's doing that, but I highly recommend learning how to use the hotkeys because it's a lot quicker than having to go back and forth and all that good junk. So you have all these different tools and stuff, and we're really not going to go over because some of them aren't really applicable to NASCAR 2003 in terms of what you'd want to do to make your model. And when you switch, you can also see that these tabs also change and such. So if you see I switch, a lot of these things disappear. So you want to make sure you're in edit mode to get these properties. And the big ones we're going to focus on is extrude, and we also want the edge loop one. And we have loop cut too, but we're going to want the, and there's also offset, which can be sometimes useful, but for the most part, extruding and edge loops. So basically what extrude does is it creates another face. So, if we click it and you have different things, you can do individual face, and using your mouse, you can do this. And then if you click, then it will have created. So you can see there's another edge here. And if we go to vertices and we select, now I've got all these selected here, and then I'm going to scale these in. And we've got kind of like a top piece here. And we can go to like face, do this, select extrude, just do something crazy, go back to vertices. And for this time, and I'm just making sure I'm selecting them all. Instead of scaling uniform, we'll do this. And you can even do extruding inward. So if you go back to face, and now whoops, didn't actually click it. I want to do individual face. So you can see I've now clicked in, but you can also do tricks like this. Whoops. There we go. I had to click. It's a little different than Maya, so I'm not as familiar with this program, but if you just click right when you hit the thing, then you can do something like this. And we've got like a weird extrusion within. And we'll just rotate it a bit. So you can make an inside thing. So if we go like this, and there we go, we got a weird indent to it as well, but you can see you can already start to manipulate this stuff really crazily. And then we go back to edge. You can, select all sorts of things. Oh yes, and I also forgot, you can see how I can't select the back one because back faces is not on. If you hit Control Shift T, this I've had it set up as a hotkey, But you can see this little button lighting up here. You can just do this button down here, which will change linked visible objects. So now you can see the lines behind it. This will turn on the back face selection. So you can hotkey all this stuff in user preferences. So if you want to do that, you can do those things. So I believe it was somewhere in 3D view. And one of those options, I don't remember because I had it set up a while ago, but you can basically hotkey any of these buttons that you want. But I have it set up to Shift T. So now if I go to Edge and I select, you can now see they're all selected. And, you know, I've just completely made it tiny. That kind of breaks the model a bit because I didn't actually model it the way that to do that, but we'll go back to there so it looks solid. But yeah, you can do a lot of stuff like that. And then there's all sorts of other tools, but mostly extrude is what you're going to want to use. You can even, like, you know, duplicate entire stuff here. You know, you can offset slide edge, which I believe I have to actually select the edge first. Or you'll have an edge and you can slide it within it and stuff, you know. You can do a lot of crazy stuff like that. And you can see loop cut. This is the other one. I'm used to it being called edge loop, but it's called loop cut in this. But, you know, I click and then I can move my mouse and say I want an edge here. And then I'll click again and put another edge. And then I'll go to Shift T, I'll go to vertices. And then we just kind of shrunk that down. So yeah, try and make some object like this basically. Just, you know, get familiar with maneuvering stuff. For the most part, what you'll need for your models is using loop cut and the extrude properties. That will get you basically everything for what we'll be modeling today. But yeah, so this is basically just show you guys how you can, you know, get in day one into Blender and start making some weird models or whatever. For now, especially if you're new to it, it will take time, and this is a dedicated process. By no means is this something that it's just going to be, you know, super easy to do. But over time you can practice and you'll get better at it, and then you can start to make some really crazy stuff, you know. So, you know, I've just expanded the base, you know, just doing some crazy clicks here just to show you all the sort of things you can do. And that one I actually made individual faces, so we'll do this. Whoops. Sometimes this white circle is a little hard to click in because it's got other stuff, but yeah. Since I extruded them as individual faces, they are not connected together or anything like that. But yeah, we've just made some weird, I don't know what this is, just showing you how you can manipulate and things can get really crazy over time. So before I end this tutorial series, I wanted to go over just a couple extra things. So I built this little simple scene here with 2 cubes, and then I deleted the faces on either end. If you want to delete faces or edges or anything, you just go into edit mode and then, you know, like click a face. Whoops. And, you know, just hit delete. But yeah, that's all I did. Anyways, say you need to combine these 2 objects together. To do that, you just make sure you're on the top tab, tools, and then you just go to join. And then you've created one object out of both of these, and you can do that multiple times for all sorts of stuff. That's really useful if you're trying to duplicate things on a track, you know, that you need a lot of buildings and stuff, and it's also good practice to try and put as many objects together as one object instead of separate pieces. But say you have the opposite problem and now you need these separated. If you go into edit mode and you want to make sure you can see all the stuff here, go to vertex, you can select them all. You can also hit Control A just to toggle all vertices selected, basically every point. And then you'll go down to mesh here, go to vertices, separate, and you want to do loose parts. And what loose parts will do is it will separate separate an object into multiple objects where there's a loose area, and like these two sides are loose, so they're not actually connected anyway. Now we've got two objects again. Oops, slightly moved that. Anyways, say you're modeling and stuff and you have like two mirror pieces and now you need to combine them. You could go back to just joining them. And well, you could just take the vertices here, you know, and then use the scaling and put them like this. That doesn't really work. You can see it's just putting them inside each other, and that's really bad modeling. You could get them close, or you could just even keep them far away. But you can merge the vertices with a button here called merge, and you can do add center. And you can see now I'm merging and welding together basically each group. Whoops, did the wrong thing there. So now I've got a model that's now one piece, and now it's got these extra edges. Say you need to delete edges and stuff. Well, you do this, you can see, now I delete edges. Now, oh crap, I've messed up the model. Because Blender works a little different than other 3D programs I'm used to with this type of method. So what you actually have to do is you have to use delete, and you want to dissolve. And dissolve, that will just clean them up. And you can see there's no vertices here anymore either. It's just now one solid object on each end. So that's also some good tricks to know how to do, and stuff like that. And over here, I haven't really gone over anything over here, but you do have properties and stuff, so you can see location, rotation, scale, all that type of stuff. So there are properties. So if I go back to object mode, and you can see the numbers here now are moving. So if you need precise calculations, you do have all the properties here as well for stuff like that. And you've got a bunch of other tabs. You have modifiers, which we won't really be using, or you won't be really using it in this basic tutorial. I'm not going to go over how to do that. This is just to show you. And I'm going to have links in the bottom of the video of Blender tutorials that might go over these things. So if you want to get into the more complex stuff, you are more than welcome to. But you will soon see that you can't go too crazy with these models because NASCAR 2003 has a limit, which I will go over in the next video, and how detailed the model can be. So, you know, I've just beveled it right now. Yeah, so, you know, I can do tricks like this, which, you know, this is still pretty low poly. But you can see, oh man, that's way too many segments. This would crash NASCAR 2003. But if for some reason you needed to. But you can see there are these modifiers over here. They're kind of like effects in an image editing program. You can add effects to your model, which if I delete the modifier, it's gone. A bevel, you know, that might be useful sometimes. You can mirror, so I mean, like as an example, I'm gonna go to face here. Just gonna do something very quick, so okay. I've just got the model selected, like mirror. So now we mirrored, and it's literally, I believe, because I don't use these modifiers very often, but I believe it's actually just made it one object, which you'll have to watch out for issues like this. If I can actually get in here and click it. Or maybe it actually has made it two separate objects. I'm not actually sure, because I don't use these things, but let's see here. But yeah, you can merge, there we go. Or not. But you can do different axes, so just by clicking them. So you do have modifiers and all that stuff. And you can even choose which objects to mirror, but for now it's just doing this one. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys also that there are modifiers, but if you're just new to this, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But for the most part, I would focus on this side and doing stuff like that. So yeah, in the next tutorial, we will start off in Blender again, and this time I'm actually going to make, from start to finish, a model that you will have prepared basically to be converted to NASCAR 2003. So that's where it will get more detailed. So until then, I'll see you guys later.